Events are expected to kick off at 10 a.m. with guests seated by 8:30 a.m. So what do we know about the man who will succeed Muhammadu Buhari in a matter of hours? Having played key roles in party politics since 1992, when he was elected senator for Lagos West Senatorial District, it's no surprise that the president-elect Bola Tinubu has attained the enviable position he's getting today. In this report, TVC News senior political correspondent Ayodele Ozubaku examines the steady rise of Tinubu to national prominence in the Nigerian political scene.
In probably the most widely open presidential election in Nigeria since 1979, Tinubu polled over 8 million votes to defeat 17 other candidates. His two closest opponents are former Vice President Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and the former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, of the Labour Party.
It doesn't distract from the fact that
before his emergence as the president-elect, Tinubu consistently played key roles in party politics since 1992, when he was elected the senator of Lagos West Senatorial District. After then, he was the governor of Lagos State for 8 years. Unlike his main opponents, including former governor of Kano State of the New Nigerian People's Party, NNPP, who came fourth in the 2023 polls, this was the first time Tinubu will run for office of the president at primary or general election stage.
Is hereby declared the winner and is returned.
His victory means that he took the prize on first attempt, just like Shehu Shagari, Olusegun Obasanjo, and Umaru Musa Yar'Adua before them.
I say thank you very much.
Yet, on many occasions between the time he declared his presidential bid and the day he collected his certificate of return, it seemed that the prize might elude him. Tinubu was the first member of the All Progressive Congress, APC, to announce his presidential bid. This was in January 2022, after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja. He led the formation of a mega political party with his Action Congress of Nigeria in the run to the 2015 general elections. The Congress for Progressive Change, CPC, and the All People's Party, ANPP, and the new PDP joined the ACN to form another party to confront the main ruling People's Democratic Party, PDP, in 2015 general election. By that action, it complimented President Buhari as the needed strategic catalyst of this great feat. At the moment, when others threatened to quit and actually quit, Tinubu doggedly stuck to the course. When the Alliance for Democracy, AD, ran into stormy weather and was hijacked by elements suspected to be funded by the government in power, Tinubu established a new party, the Action Congress of Nigeria. The epic turn from governing a single state to governing a country had begun. The ACN went on to win 6 states and secure the Southwest for the progressive cause. For more than 30 years, Tinubu built a network of allies across and outside the country. It is not accidental that he got the strongest support from the North during and after the APC presidential primaries and gathered the votes from the states that earned him victory at the polls. Ayodele Ozubaku, TVC News, Lagos.
All right, that is the life of the man who will be president for the next 4 years. Now, we have a guest in the studio who we'll be speaking with to give us an insight into what kind of presidency we'll be expecting. And I have with me in the studio Yusuf Baba, a policy analyst. It's nice to have you join me in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Great.
Good to be here.
Great. Now, a lot of Nigerians have confidence that the next level of governance is going to turn around Nigeria. Of course, there are other Nigerians who are generally skeptical about things because of experiences over the decades of how leadership has been on the African continent. But I wonder what you share, what you feel about a Tinubu presidency that's coming on board.
Thank you very much. I'll take it from one of the points you made about the level of frustration of Nigerians. And that extent, what I would call diminishing hope with regards to the expectation of our leaders to deliver good governance. Since return to democracy, we have been, making the progress of 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. And all the promises made by successive leaders, whether at national or subnational levels, have not been delivered. Largely so. Of course, there are some that have done so. So to that extent, there's a high level of expectation, more than ever in the history of Nigeria, on the presidency of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. It's highly contested elections, especially at the national level. And they're at the point where Nigeria is at its most polarized time in the history of Nigeria. So it's a Herculean task for Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. The comforting, aspect for me and for a lot of Nigerians is the fact that, first of all, we have to embrace reality and move on. Elections have been done, a winner has been announced. While we are dealing with the issues, depending on what side of the divide you sit, we just have to have a leader. There is no vacuum. There shouldn't be vacuum in leadership. Antecedents, Mike, pedigree, are critical in, first of all, evaluating potentials and also managing expectations. Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, right from his days, I heard the opening remarks and I heard a lot about, his emergence in 1992 as a senator.
Exactly.
But more importantly, for me, is the involvement of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu in the fight for the restoration of democracy. Very critical and important, without which we would not be here today, right? And then performance as governor of Lagos State from 1999 to 2007, and his critical contributions to the growth of Lagos and indeed to stabilizing and consolidating democracy in Nigeria. And if anything is used to determine the potential of somebody's performance, it's antecedents. That is why we present our CVs when we apply for jobs. That is why you have the rear view mirror, consideration when you want to think of what is coming, and even for projections. So the expectations are high, national and international, in terms of what Tinubu will bring to the table. Of course, we shouldn't also forget the fact or ignore the fact that he's coming also at a time that there is serious global and national economic challenges. He's going to take mantle of leadership with a myriad of issues. But I believe that before he signed up for this job, he knew the enormosity of the task. He is a man that likes facing challenges, and he has demonstrated it by what? By delivering with a team. He's a talent spotter, he's a believer in Nigeria, and I believe with the right team, he will be able to do what a lot of people think he won't do. But a lot of us believe that we are having a positive expectation of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu.
It's quite good to know and have things from that perspective. However, one thing Nigerians are looking forward to now is the cabinet, the team that he's going to put together. Recall that in 2015, when incumbent president Muhammadu Buhari came on board, Nigerians were expecting that he was going to make appointments within days or just within weeks. And no one saw appointments until about 6 months and so on. But others are saying Tinubu would not be like that. But talk to us from the window of what you expect in the kind of team that he's going to put together.
First of all, it is comforting also to know that the outgoing president, Muhammadu Buhari, signed up a legislation that has become a law that an incoming president must form a cabinet within a timeline, which is fantastic. I think that will put that to rest, this docility in trying to deal with critical issues of governance. But Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a different personality type from the outgoing president. And in trying to decipher or to project what to expect from a leader, you try to decipher his personality type. Ashwaji is front-facing, very proactive, very pragmatic, as attested over time, as he has demonstrated over time. And therefore, what we expect is a president that will hit the ground running, a president that will take charge from the get-go. I believe that he has already formed an interim team, or let me say the first-line team, preparatory to other appointments. So I am very sure that the gentleman has in his pocket, the first-line team that is going to reel out to hit the ground running. He understands the enormosity of the problems we have in this country. So I believe that we expect, pragmaticness in terms of how he's going to. Talking about cabinet, if you go back to his acceptance speech, one of the key points I took out is that he said, "The youth, I hear you, loud and clear. Together, we will chart the way forward." In another paragraph, he spoke about national healing and understanding the issues that we currently face. Also, if you look from antecedents, forming cabinet as governor of Lagos State, he had a diverse cabinet and people that helped him to govern Lagos. People from Southeast, people from different parts of the country. So I expect a diverse, team. And I expect not just a diverse team for the purpose of the provision of the Constitution. Don't forget that the Constitution has made it such that there should be balance, in appointment.
The federal character.
Federal character. But more than that, I will expect Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu to pick people of competence because that is who he is. He wants to work with the best, and that is why he delivers. I am a believer that when you see a leader, before you assess the leader, look at the team around him. Before you define your expectation and manage your expectations, look at the team around him. The team around the leader makes him who he is, or actually break him. So to that extent, we expect competent people, we expect meritocracy in this administration, because I believe that an Ashwaju that has come to this life that God has blessed so far has nothing else to do but to demonstrate and to prove to Nigerians that he is at this position to leave a mark and for his name to be written, in gold in history of Nigeria.
Well, his supporters, some of those who are close to him, have said that he will be hitting the ground running from day one.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to governance and standard of living and what Nigerians expect, what they are asking for is not necessarily too much. It's just basic things of life. But what area do you think that he should start from as an issue of priority, hitting the ground running?
Mike's sequence of critical next steps. It's not going to be a walk in the park for Ashwaju, and it's going to be tougher on the team. He's going to drive that team to deliver. So anybody that is lobbying or that is expecting appointment should expect a tough 4 years ahead. And if you talk about critical priorities, the critical next steps, first is to address the issue of insecurity. According to the rating of Global Firepower Rating, Nigeria is fourth in the continent of Africa in terms of security capacity. Now, that tells you the kind of dire situation we are. We are behind Algeria, we are behind Egypt, while we are about 15 to 16% of the population of the continent, with the critical issues that have bedeviled this country in the last 16, 17 years. So security is critical to our territorial integrity, to our sovereignty, to our internal security, from which now you can deal with other issues. So the first thing is to address the issue of insecurity. While I'm at it, I dare say that some of these critical next steps have to go pari passu. The second one is the issue of national healing, national unity. which has to go pari passu with this issue of security because tempers are high, flared up. There's this what I call fear factor, Mike. The critical issue in Nigeria is the fear factor. Some people are wondering what is going to happen to us next. This issue of disconnection, disenchantment, has to be dealt with by Ashwaji Bola Tinubu. He has to, within the first 1 to 2 weeks, demonstrate to Nigerians that, look, I am the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm not the president of a region. I'm not the president of the APC. I'm the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that is very critical. The next one, of course, is to deal with the issue of the economy. We are in dire straits. The numbers are not looking good. Okay? We look at the statistics that is going to inherit a debt stock of over 77 trillion. You know, a debt to GDP ratio about 23%. Look at the inflation. You look at the projections. IMF projected that Nigeria will grow at a rate of about 3.1% in this year, but by next year it's going to contract by 2-point-something%. We don't even know what is going to happen in the next 6 months because the global geopolitics and other issues are still impacting on our national polity and what I call the self-inflicted injuries by the outgoing administration. So these critical priorities are very important. The next one is very important as well, and that's why I say some of these things have to go pari passu. The issue of the style of governance. The governance frameworks have to be leaner and more efficient, Mike. So Ashwaji Bola Tinubu has to make tough decisions for him to be able to deliver, because apart from the kitchen cabinet and the Federal Executive Council and all the appointments down the line, the critical contributors to the success or failure of any government is the civil service. We have a civil service that, with all due respect, you know, is having much less to be desired for. So he has to also take the bull by the horn and deal with that recurring issue, right from the time of President Olusegun Obasanjo. President Obasanjo attempted, by laying the foundation of attempting to reform the civil or public service. Mm-hmm. And on, successive administrations have not been able to do that. This is a sore thumb that has to be addressed for any administration to be successful. So, to my mind, these are the 4 critical things that have to be done, albeit some of them have to go pari passu concurrently because of the situation we are in, and indeed some of them have dependencies with each other.
They are all connected one way or the other.
One way or the
now,
other.
Let's talk about the issue of leadership of Nigeria, regional leadership. At independence, we saw Nigeria was at par with countries like India, with countries like Brazil, you know, and a few other countries. However, 2-3 decades after that time, we saw how Brazil and India had gone far beyond Nigeria, leaving Nigeria behind. But now a lot of people feel that this is the time to come back to where we're supposed to be and play at that league, you know, high up there. I wonder what it will take to bring Nigeria back to that level of reputation across the world.
It's going to take tough decisions by the president. But let me say this, Mike. We should not live in the illusion that the emergence of a president, or let me put it that way, let us not live with the illusion that what we need is a president that is a magician. A president that will just emerge and just, you know, wave a wand and everything goes away. Governance, to my mind, I believe in the school of thought that governance and leadership is not a singular affair. The success of a country depends on the kind of leadership value chain you have. I keep on coming with this phrase that I call leadership value chain. So we should also understand that the success of Ashwaji Bola Tinubu will depend on the leadership value chain. The governors, the legislators at the national and the subnational level, the civil service, I repeat civil service, I repeat civil service. Any nation that has a civil service that is not reformed the way it should be will have a leader that is a caged leader. There's little or nothing you can do when you have a civil service that is not in sync or in lockstep with the vision and the ideals and the values of the focal point leader. The focal point leader is what I call the president or the governor, those in the front. So it's going to be, a teamwork all the way within the framework of governance in Nigeria. Having said that, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is one of the most powerful presidents in the world. And therefore, he has an opportunity, to be benevolent and to be, like I said, front-facing and result-oriented. This noble thought of idealism of running and catching up with the Brazils and the Indians, I'm sorry to burst your bubbles, it's not going to happen quick. It is easy to destroy, Mike, but it's very difficult to build.
More challenging to build.
We have to deal with these fundamental issues in Nigeria. But with the right leadership and the right mindset, and of course, while we are talking about those 4 points, there is a common denominator factor that will lead to the success of insecurity, of economy, of national healing, and whatnot, including fight against corruption. And that is value reorientation, Mike. Wow. In the way and the manner we do things. Critical to the success. Yeah. So if we want to be like a Brazil or India, don't look at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu alone. If Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu wants a critical legislation to be passed, and you have a parliament that is docile or that is not thinking that way, you have a situation. If you have a judiciary that is not front-facing, that is not fair and just and looking for the interests of Nigeria, looking out for the interests of Nigeria, you have a problem. And if you have you and I also not playing our roles in our various areas, whether it is public sector or private sector, we are living a dream that will not happen. So it is a concerted effort for a nation to move forward. Indeed, the critical leader should drive from the front and live by example so that it will impact, laterally and horizontally. That being said, it is a good thing for us to look and aspire to be where we were before. But it's not going to be an easy task, but indeed it is possible.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the issue of restructuring. Now, we recall in the last few years, the word restructuring became so controversial because people say it meant different things to different people and all of that. But in the real sense of it, we saw how the debate went across the country. Some confused, others convinced, and so on. But President Muhammadu Buhari signed some bills into law that offloaded some items on the exclusive legislative list into the concurrent list. Items like railways, items like power, the correctional centers, and so on, which a lot of persons saw that as the restructuring, that partial restructuring that people were talking about. Now, what do you see a Tinubu presidency doing when it comes to some kinds of reorganization of the kind of country, the structure of the country that we run?
Let me say this. I believe for Nigeria to go forward, I strongly believe that restructuring needs to take place. We need to look at the entire project called Nigeria. From a governance perspective, from a socio-economic perspective. Very important. And to that extent, the legislations that were passed and signed off to law, fantastic. What remains to be seen is how the leaders at the subnational deliver. I will use this opportunity to say that as citizens, we should not just look at the president. The big culprits that have been holding us back in the progress of the Nigerian project are the leaders at the subnational, with due respect. The governors have been underperforming over time. If you look at the performance beyond the scorecards, the interesting thing with Nigeria or anywhere is you can reel out scorecard PowerPoints. But the people that are feeling the brunt on the streets know whether you are performing or not. So the governors need to up their game. These new legislations will show us if governors will move away from being transactional and to be more strategic and more positively impactful. Now, talking about other aspects of restructuring, one of the key issues is to deal with the issue of national healing. And one of the takeouts will be some of these critical issues of restructuring that will be addressed, including our style of governance, which is too expensive, which is too cumbersome and inefficient. So I believe that because we know also from the records, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had been a proponent of restructuring. Now, how he wants that done is what will be I'm very much interested, to see that. But these are very critical things to be done in the next 1 year for him to be able to deliver, properly. We need a leaner, more efficient governance framework from the presidency down to the subnationals. We need meritocracy. We need efficiencies, in governance. And of course, with respect to the principles of separation of powers also, we have a legislature that needs to up its game for us to see that result. Because the executive will play its role, but unless the lawmaking and also the provisions of the Constitution, like Section 88 and Section 89 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, gives powers to the National Assembly to do the needful, providing checks and balances amongst other provisions of the Constitution, Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu will make minimal impact. So it's going to have to be a holistic affair, but indeed restructuring is a critical thing to be looked into.
Amazing. All right, as we wrap up, let's talk about education, which a lot of people and even policy analysts like you would agree that education is the bane of any development. It's a foundation, the bedrock of any development. Recall that when Bola Tinubu, in his acceptance speech on the day that he was declared winner of the presidential election, education was one item he hammered on, spoke on very, very vividly and very, emphatically. He was saying that he was going to, bring some reforms. He was going to, bring on board issues of student credits, and then there wasn't going to be strikes anymore, and so on. And then also working on curriculum that would be relevant to the realities of Nigeria and all of that. Now, speak to us from that window. What kind of reform should be in the education sector that can transform Nigeria, especially for the next generation?
Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said during his campaign, and if we review the Renewed Hope, agenda, the strategy document, he was very clear with regards to how he intends to address the issue of education. And it has to go, side by side with his vision for the youth of Nigeria. When he said, I hear you loud and clear, you see the technology component, the policy component, the legislature component, all addressed in that renewed whole agenda. He spoke to some youth and to us in town hall meetings and told the youth of Nigeria and their parents how he intends to deal with some of the issues around education. For example, this recurring issue of strike by the lecturers, the lack of critical infrastructure in our education sector, the lack of funding, for the sector, and also to support parents and their children, to get good education. He came with some very creative ideas about funding, and credit facilities and all that. So off the cuff, we have seen, dimensions of things that he's going to do to progress the sector, understanding that education is key to national development. Education is key to youth empowerment and youth development. And I like the idea about skills acquisition and skill imparting on the youth over and beyond the classroom education system.
Amazing. All right, we'll look forward to greater days ahead. Yusuf Baba, policy analyst, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Great.
We look forward to a better Nigeria.
Of course, that's what everyone's hoping. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.